Welcome to the LeRoy McGuirk, Oklahoma, Louisiana Wrestling Territory Event Center. Al Getz here, ready to take a look at all of the house shows we have records for during a one-week period of time in 1971. From there, we're going to see if we can figure out how many cards we are missing and what those cards might have looked like. It's a little bit of data magic, and it will show you how we use what we know to best estimate what we don't know. LeRoy McGuirk's territory typically ran 3 house shows a night, Monday through Saturdays in 1971. At the time, they didn't always run a full slate of cards on Sundays. Now, this was commonplace for a lot of territories, particularly in the southern United States, as the so-called blue laws in some states prohibited businesses from operating on Sundays. With that in mind, let's take a look at the 19 house shows we have records for during the week beginning Monday, September 6th, and ending Sunday, September 12th, 1971. We're not going to go into details about the matches or the results. If you would like more information on these cards, be sure to visit chartingtheterritories.com. On Monday, September 6th, shows were held in Shreveport, Louisiana, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Westwego, Louisiana. Shreveport had Tom Jones and Billy Red Lions defending the United States Tag Team titles against the Great Mephisto and Vic Mueller in the main event. Tulsa had Bill Watts and Danny Hodge taking on Rip Kirby, also known as Roger Kirby, and Dr. X in this territory. This was Jim Osborne. Plus, Dusty Rhodes defending the North American title against Dale Lewis. And Westwego had Bob Boyer and Gypsy Joe Rosario in a cage match. On Tuesday, September 7th, shows were held in Little Rock, Arkansas, Longview, Texas, and Monroe, Louisiana. Little Rock had Billy Red Lions, Tom Jones, and Dale Lewis against Terry Garvin, Dusty Rhodes, and Dr. X. Longview had Buck Ramstad and Pepe Gomez teaming with local promoter Leonard Clay to face Chaddy Yakuchi and Yasu Fuji in a handicap winner-take-all match, with Yakuchi and Fuji agreeing to leave Longview if they didn't win. Monroe was scheduled as Danny Hodge, getting a chance to regain the NWA World Junior Heavyweight title from Rip Kirby in a match with no time limit. However, it was reported that Hodge was involved in a car accident on the way to the show, where he suffered 3 broken ribs and head lacerations. Ramon Torres subbed for Hodge in the main event and scored a shocking victory over Kirby to win the title. On Wednesday, September 8th, shows were held in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Vicksburg, Mississippi. Baton Rouge had Tom Jones and Billy Red Lions defending the U.S. Tag Team titles against Dusty Rhodes and Terry Garvin, while Vicksburg had Ramon Torres taking on Rip Kirby. On Thursday, September 9th, shows were held in Greenville, Mississippi, New Orleans, Louisiana, and Wichita Falls, Texas. Greenville had Dusty Rhodes defending the North American title against Dale Lewis as the main event, though according to the results I have, Lewis did not appear and the card was rearranged. New Orleans had Rip Kirby versus Ramon Torres, plus Billy Red Lions and Tom Jones against Vic Mueller and the Great Mephisto. Wichita Falls was scheduled to have Danny Hodge against Dr. X, but the day of the show, it was announced that Hodge was injured and Bob Boyer would be taking his place. On Friday, September 10th, shows were held in Lafayette, Louisiana, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and Texarkana, Arkansas. Lafayette had Tom Jones and Billy Red Lions versus Terry Garvin and Gypsy Joe Rosario, with special referee matchmaker Sam Menaker. Oklahoma City had a scheduled Hodge versus Kirby match, with Ramon Torres ending up subbing for Hodge, plus a 6-man tag with Watts, Lewis, and Ivan Putski against Dr. X, Dusty Rhodes, and Bob Sweetan. Texarkana had Buck Ramstad versus Vic Mueller in a Falls Count Anywhere match, and Ramon Torres was advertised for the undercard, though he was instead brought into Oklahoma City to sub for Hodge. On Saturday, September 11th, shows were held in Greenwood, Mississippi, Joplin, Missouri, and Loranger, Louisiana. Greenwood had Tom Jones versus the Great Mephisto in a winner-take-all, no disqualification match where the deciding fall must be won either with Jones's headbutt or with Mephisto's finisher, which was called the Blockbuster. Joplin was scheduled to have Hodge teaming with Red McKim to face Dr. X and Bob Sweetan. Results were unavailable, but Hodge almost certainly did not appear. Loranger had Bob Boyer versus Terry Garvin. On Sunday, September 12th, shows were held in Houma, Louisiana, and a special matinee card in Monroe, Louisiana. Homa had Chadi Yakuchi and Yasu Fuji versus Bob Boyer and Pepe Gomez in a no disqualification winner-take-all bout. Monroe had Ramon Torres versus Rip Kirby for the World Junior Heavyweight title, as well as Jones and Lyons versus Mephisto and Mueller for the U.S. Tag Team titles. So with all that in mind, let's now take a look at a spreadsheet I put together showing where all the wrestlers in the territory were booked each night of the week. And from there, we'll see if we can figure out what cards we might be missing. This spreadsheet lists the crew working in the territory at the time. Baby faces are on the left, heels are on the right. The upper section is wrestlers who were main eventers in the territory at the time, and then the rest of the crew is listed below with part-timers at the very bottom. On Monday, September 6th, you can see I've noted which wrestlers were booked in Tulsa, Shreveport, and Westwego by using abbreviations. Now for Westwego, the newspaper article only listed one match, but there was certainly at least one more. We see here that there are 3 baby faces and 2 heels on the full-time roster not booked, so likely 4 of them worked in Westwego. I would imagine that Yakuchi and Fuji teamed up to face some combination of Ramon Torres, Pepe Gomez, and Bobby Whitlock, with there also being 1 or 2 preliminary matches, which would have been singles matches involving 2 or 4 of those wrestlers. On Tuesday the 7th, the only regular not booked on one of the 3 cards was Bill Watts, so that day's schedule is complete. On Wednesday the 8th, we only have records for 2 shows, and there sure seemed to be enough wrestlers unbooked for there to have been a 3rd card somewhere. On the babyface side, you have Watts, Hodge, Bob Boyer, Ramstad, Salento Rodriguez, and Bobby Whitlock. On the heel side, you have Dr. X, Yakuchi and Fuji, Bob Sweetan, Boris Malenko, Apache Gringo, and Tom Bradley. With a total of 13 wrestlers available, not only could there have been a show, it's entirely possible there were 2 small shows with 6 wrestlers on each. But at the very least, we're missing 1 show here. And just a quick aside, we're talking about shows that would have been advertised and planned ahead of time. With Hodge's injury, of course, he wouldn't have actually wrestled on either of these missing shows, but he would have been advertised. On Thursday the 9th, the only regulars not booked on one of the 3 cards in our records are Watts, Bob Boyer, and Tom Bradley. So I don't think there would have been a 4th show here. And in fact, Boyer ended up subbing for Hodge in Wichita Falls, making it even less likely there was a 4th show. On Friday the 10th, the only regular not booked is Boyer, so just like Thursday, there wouldn't have been another show. On Saturday the 11th, there are enough wrestlers not booked on one of the 3 cards we know about to have a 4th show. Actually, there are 12 wrestlers not booked, so just like on Wednesday, it's entirely possible there were 2 small shows. On the babyface side, you had Watts, Torres, Lewis, Ramstad, Putski, and Salento. On the heel side, Dusty, Kirby, Malenko, Chris Markoff, Apache Gringo, and Tom Bradley were all available. One thing I will say is that the more I look into these schedules and calendars, the more I'm open to the idea that some of the wrestlers who worked a TV taping, perhaps earlier in the day, were given the night off. And so that may have been the case here, but I don't know for sure. Sunday the 12th, there are 10 wrestlers not booked on either of the 2 cards we have records for. But as I mentioned earlier, they didn't always run a full schedule on Sundays, so it is possible those wrestlers got a day off, and it is possible there was another show. At a bare minimum, it looks like we're missing at least 1 card on Wednesday. We may be missing 1 on Saturday as well, and both those days, it's entirely possible we're missing not 1, but 2 small shows. And there's a possibility we're missing yet another show on Sunday. So we could be missing 1 card, we could be missing 5, but most likely it's somewhere in between. Be sure to visit chartingtheterritories.com for more info on this territory. And don't forget that we will look at a different territory each and every month on our website, on our podcast, and here in this event center on our YouTube channel as we continue our quest to chart the territories.